2024 was a big year for Path of Titans. Lots of dinosaurs released, and lots of dinosaurs got absolutely rebalanced, and a bunch of TLCs. And today, I'm putting them all into a tier list. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. We're starting with a Kilobator, and personally, I'm putting it into C tier straight away. The reason for that at the moment is that although, yes, it is an effective dinosaur, I think as a free slot, it's one of the worst. And the other thing with a Kilo is that it's meant to be a mob boss for smaller dinosaurs, smaller raptors. When it's solo or even with that mob boss group, it's still not massively effective, and there's definitely better dinosaurs to play as there in my eyes. Another one that makes its way into C tier is Alderon. Now, this has some of the best mobility for its size. It's a great harassing dinosaur, and it's quite fun to play, although I do think there are slightly better dinosaurs in its tier. Now, C tier isn't like a problematic tier. It's basically the run-of-the-mill, decently balanced tier. You know, you're not going to have a terrible time playing it. Speaking of better dinosaurs, Allosaurus goes straight into A tier. The introduction of fresh blood and the increase on the bleed with fresh blood and damage from that as well makes this a lot better of a playable than it used to be. Before, I'd probably put Allosaurus into D, E, maybe C. It goes straight into A now, and when this gets a TLC, it's going to be even better than it is at the moment. Speaking of something else that goes into A tier, I'm putting Ceratosaurus in there, the recent Ceratosaurus TLC. I originally was going to put this into C. It's going into A since I've done a recent 2v2 fight with it. I love this. Now, I don't run the traditional charged bite unless, you know, I'm solo, but the swerve ability when against equal-footed tiers is a very good ability. Being able to just 180 turn and bite while you know, people have got, you know, chasing you, you can just turn and bite them. I think that's incredible, and it's very fun, and it does good damage as well. This is a lot better than it used to be as a playable. Introduction of fracture again on this dinosaur as well, bringing back some of the golden age for this dinosaur. Not quite there yet, but it is bringing it back ever so slightly. Concavenator, I think, is well-rounded. It goes into B tier. It's got good mobility both in the water and on the land. It's got good bleed outputs. It's essentially a small mobile bleeder for its tier. Essentially like a baby Allosaurus, but maybe not as effective as an Allosaurus. Now, the next creature might cause a stir because this will be the first S tier dinosaur that I am putting in this tier list. It is Daspletosaurus. Out of the free slot carnivores, this is the best one. This has a diversity of head attacks as well, which allows you for quite some versatility and picking and choosing what you want. And the fact that that normal bite attack is standard on this dinosaur and you can't get rid of it because it's a passive slot makes it even better. You have a lot of good options to choose from here, and it's very good at tearing apart its opponent. Deinonychus, I think, is the movement king. Tail fan, double jump, good mobility, better mobility than Latinovenatrix, but I think when they made the TLC and they made it like a little bit of a support creature, I think that kind of let it down. So for now, that goes into C tier. And speaking of its rival, Latinovenatrix goes right into B tier in my eyes. This is better damage output, better bleed output, less mobility, yes, but you still got the tail fan to allow you to get around a little bit. I don't know which one's got the most health, but Latinovenatrix also doesn't have Lucky Feather. Deinonychus does, which allows you to survive extra hits that would otherwise one-shot you. Either way, I still think Latinovenatrix is the better out of the two. Megalania and metriacanthosaurus are next. We're just going to start with Megalania. Megalania goes into D. I think this used to be a great playable. This used to go into B or A, but its fall from grace should be studied. Unless you are a Megalania main and you would love this thing, and you're going to now type out a very angry comment in the comments saying that I am hating that of Megalanias. Now, in my eyes, I think that once it went down to be a 2-slot and switched with metriacanthosaurus, it lost its way a bit. It's not something I would choose to play as. You know, if you want to go for a semi-aquatic swimmer, Concavenate is better, and it does bleed instead. This does venom, and I still think like venom isn't really as effective as it used to be either, so it kind of lets this playable down quite a bit. Now, the other one that I think is going straight into D tier as well is metriacanthosaurus. Metri, once again, the same situation as Megalania. Ever since it switched and became a 3-slot support healer, this thing was terrible. It became terrible. It used to be amazing. It used to be one of the funnest playables in the game, and then it just got bigger and got worse. Sadly, your only healer as a carnivore is Metri, and then that's the problem that you have to deal with. If you were to choose a healer between Lambio and Metri, go with Lambio. That is the best support healer in the game. I think it's far better than metriacanthosaurus. Metri, yes, it does have some stuff, but I think Metri's in an interesting spot where it kind of doesn't know what it wants to be. It still does venom. It's, you know, a mid-tier carnivore. It's a support healer, but it doesn't have the versatility of the abilities that Lambiosaurus has. I think this does need a slight TLC to get it a little bit more competitive with that of Lambiosaurus. And that's where I stand with those two, both in D tier at the moment. Now, Picnomosaurus, I think, would go into B or C. Like, I think it's a very, you know, it's mobile, it's a hit or run playable, but I do think it's kind of been let down a little bit lately. The recoil damage is good, but, like, the amount of recoil that you deal to yourself kind of lets it down a little bit. You've got the ability that allows you to gain stamina when you get bitten, but it's not as strong compared to, you know, Dasp, Aloe. Is definitely better than a Kilobator, though. This is definitely a good small game hunter, though, with the charge, which is very good. The Horn Bash is good, and I do think the abilities like Braced Legs make it pretty good as well. I think for now it goes into C tier, but I've just listed off all the good things. It could very much go into B tier. It's literally, I think, straddling the edges here of B, C. I think literally just, it's more leaning towards C at the moment, but maybe it'll change in the future. Speaking of something that goes into A tier, Sarcosuchus goes into A tier. You're able to pick up pretty much most mid tiers, even that of Anodontosaurus. It doesn't really have a gameplay style that is duplicated or replicated across the board for any other playable at the moment, so I think it kind of does have that unique aspect to it in that sense. That being said, we're going to move into the next dinosaur, and this one might hurt some feelings. Normally I'd put Spinosaurus into S tier. It's not going into S tier today. It's going into A tier. Now, it's going at top of A tier, and I'm just going to move Sarco up as well. Spino's interesting because I asked about where it would place in a tier list yesterday at the end of my 2v2 stream with Yellow Tones, and it was very mixed. People were saying B, C, and then S. Not many people said A, so I guess this is the middle ground between all of that. I think it has potential to be an S tier if you are someone who mains Spinosaurus. If you are not someone who mains Spinosaurus like me, it's going to be a tough playable to pick up and has a decently higher skill curve than some of the other apexes. So I think for now, goes into A tier. Speaking of something else that goes into A tier, Suchomimus. I absolutely love this dinosaur. This is a really, really good dinosaur. It's got good bite attack damage. It's then got claw barrage. And by the way, I didn't even cover this in my last news video, but have you seen the new animation for Claw Barrage on the PTB? It looks incredible. Play it right now so you can see it because it looks so, so nice. Anyways, that's not even what I want to talk about. This is a very good dinosaur. It's got a good bite that does decent damage. Then you couple that with the Claw or the Claw Barrage. Personally, I'd go with the Claw Barrage, and you can effectively go toe-to-toe with other apexes in the game. It's kind of like Spino. You got that reach because you got that longer snout, but that also means you're more able to be hit on the head as well. Now, speaking of which, let's go into our next S tier. Tyrannotitan is literally what every carnivore is lacking. Every apex carnivore is lacking. It's strong, it's fun, it's got maneuverability on its side, it's got stamina on its side, and when I say stamina and maneuverability, that's what Rex, Spino, other apex carnivores lack. Although it doesn't have the damage on its side, it's a high bleeder. And it's able to juke as well, which is really strange to me. I don't know who thought it was a great idea to give it juke and be that mobile, but I think it's a definitely fun playable to players. Now, speaking of another fun playable to players that I think goes into S tier, and the last carnivore that we're going to be talking about, aside from obviously the flies, which we'll get to later, Tyrannosaurus Rex pops into S tier as well. Tyrannosaurus is literally Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's got that good face tank ability, which if you're picking and choosing what you want to go against, say you're going against a Spino, use that deep rumble and face tank on normal bite and you should be fine. You can just face tank them and get away with it. But if you're going up against something more mobile like Tyrannotitan, you kind of have to bring the fight to them, otherwise they're going to go for that more long drawn out fight. You have the damage per minute on your side. You do have slight health advantages as well. I'm not sure about combat weight, but you do have the advantage across the board. Tyrannosaurus is probably one of the more well-rounded playables to just pick up and get used to if you are used to carnivore playstyles, and I do think Tyrannosaurus is a good one, and that's why it goes into S ahead of that of Spinosaurus as well. Now we're halfway through now, we're going into the herbivores. The first one for me is albertaceratops. Now, albertaceratops is strong. It's good for raw damage in my eyes, but if you were to go out for either Sty or albertaceratops, I'd probably go with Styracosaurus. Where would I put it though? I love albertaceratops. Now, I did say you should pick Sty over Alberta. Is that because I'm gatekeeping how much I love albertaceratops and I don't want my precious baby to be taken away from me? Maybe, but I think at the moment it'll probably sit into B tier. This thing is so good though. It's got such good damage. It's got the maneuverability is not amazing compared to Sty, but it's just a little chubby potato. I love it so much. It's so cute. I think B tier is probably fine for it at the moment. Speaking of something that has been nerfed and then seemingly resurrected a little bit, Amargasaurus is the next one we're talking about. This has had some nerfs in the past and now has been getting some buffs. It currently has buffs on the PTB and the official servers. It's the same buffs. These were brought around Christmas and then should be coming to the live game around the next update. Amargasaurus is now relatively decent, and it is important to note how bad this thing was before. Before, this thing needed insane speed and stamina stats, but now I'll probably put it into B tier, about there. It's well-rounded, it's decent, it's not terrible. That being said, speaking of something that I think is a bit too strong for its own boots if in the right hands, Anodontosaurus. Now, Anodontosaurus has hunker down. That's all fine and dandy, you can deal with that, but they recently then decreased the food drain rate, which makes it a little bit harder to get out of hunker down. And then they obviously have the area of effect tail slam, which has a slightly bit too big tail slam radius for what it's worth, which makes this a lot more stronger than it is. Now, if you were to come up against an Anno, the best idea is to just keep back, make it come to you, and when it's out of that hunker down, you bite it. But that tail slam makes it a little bit harder, because even if you're attacking the front of the dinosaur or thinking you're getting out of the way of that tail slam, the tail slam still hits you. As for that case, it goes straight into A tier, below Sarco, because Sarco can pick it up. Speaking of barsboldia now, Bars is in dire need of a TLC. We've known this for ages. It really needs one. For now, it goes into A tier at the very top. It's actually probably one of the best herbivores, come to think of it, and I think I'm probably going to change that mind in a minute, but it's just showing its age a little bit. It's feeling like an old man that's telling everybody to get off its lawn. It's the grandpa of the game, and it needs some love. And I think after its TLC, it's probably going to go straight back into S tier. Now, I was really confused because recently it did get some nerfs, and then it got some buffs. And I just feel like they don't know where they want barsboldia to be before the TLC. They literally could just keep it at what it was at before, and it would have been fine. Speaking of something that I think does need some love, Campto. I love Campto. Campto has a soft spot in my heart. There's a running joke that people say that Campto looks like me, which it does not, okay? It does not. I do not look like a Camptosaurus, but I think Stroofy gets first choice over it, and Campto needs abilities. The only thing that Campto has going for it at the moment is hop away, and when your only thing that you've got going for you at the moment is to run away, it means you're in a little bit of a pickle, right? Yes, it's got the health and combat weight over Struthiomimus, but it doesn't have the versatility. It doesn't have the support abilities. It doesn't have good attacks. It just can run away. And so Campto, as much as I love you, you're going straight down there. Speaking of something that I think will go into A tier as well, Deinonychus is a menace to deal with, kind of like that of Spinosaurus. It's well-rounded as a semi-aquatic. It's kind of decent in both aspects, but I think it's more front-heavy with its attacks. Yes, it has its tail attack, but do bear in mind its tail is a lot shorter than that of Spinosaurus, so dinosaurs do have to get a little bit close to it for it to do that tail knockback. And then you've got very good claw attacks as well. But that being said, this thing, once again, very front heavy. So I think it kind of just gets pipped by Spino. Triceratops, with its sharpened horns, its good horn abilities, its good raw damage output and good damage per minute, especially when you have that sharpened horns. It's got good health, good combat weight. If I put this into S tier, people will then be like, why is Bars not in S tier? But I'm putting it into S tier anyways, because I just think, to me, probably one of the best herbivore apexes. Now, with the kickboxer or boxer gameplay style, Iguanodon is a lot better than it used to be. Its TLC has definitely gave it the life that it needs, and it's now moved it into a 4 slot as well as a playable. I do think Iguanodon goes into A tier with its versatility, being able to stand switch and then punch its enemies to death. It also has that slam on the ground, which is pretty good. It is well rounded, and when it first released that TLC, nobody wanted to go near it, and I think people have kind of figured it out now, but it's still something I wouldn't want to go near either. It's definitely not a fun thing to deal with. Straight into A tier goes Iguanodon. I think Iguanodon definitely deserves it. Kentrosaurus I would put into A tier, but we have a lot of A tier dinosaurs at the moment. I've just realized our tier list has kind of gone very top heavy with A tier playables, so I might have to change where I'm going to put Kentro. Kentro has that good reflect damage for the bleed. If you bite literally anywhere on Kentro, you're going to bleed, which obviously isn't fun for anyone to deal with. Now has puncture, which allows you to, you know, make the bleed recovery rate for enemies even worse, and I don't know. Kentro is just, it's like a little tiny version of Stegosaurus, and I do enjoy that for the dinosaur. I think it makes it very fun, and it's very mobile as well. It's a very mobile playable. I'll put it into B tier for now. I definitely really want to put it into A tier though. Speaking of a dinosaur that I think deserves a spot in the S tier, Lambeosaurus. It's a 3 slot herbivore, yes, but it's the best healer support dinosaur in the game. And it's not even that. It's a healer support that can, 1, effectively defend itself and attack. It's got good health values. It's got good defense values. And then you're able to just buff your teammates with health recovery calls, or pretty much 9 different vocal abilities that you can choose from to buff your team. This thing is all around one of the best supports in the game. Every herbivore group needs a Lambeosaurus in my eyes, and honestly, this thing absolutely batters metriacanthosaurus out the park. You know what? Metriacanthosaurus goes to sleep and stares at a poster of a Lambeosaurus before it goes to sleep. That's what it wants to be. It wants to be the Lambeosaurus of the carnivores, but it just can't be the Lambeosaurus of the carnivores because at the moment it's in just a slightly weird position where he doesn't know what he wants. He's going for a phase. Does he want this? Does he want that? No, he wants to be Lambeo, but he doesn't know how to get there. Lambeo's literally everything Metri wants to be. And I think just for that, Lambeo goes into S tier. I went off on an incredible tangent there. Lambeo by far one of my favorite dinosaurs in the game. I think it's just insanely good. Right, it's really good, and that TLC made it even better. Before, this thing had such like a come up. It used to be like E, D, and now it's like S tier. What a come up for Lambeo. We need to study that. Pachycephalosaurus in my eyes coming up next. This goes probably into A or B. I think this is a more funner version of Pycno, I guess. You've got those insane like knockback values, and you can switch the knockback out for raw damage values. This thing, you have so many options to play as. You want to be raw damage or knockback, you can be whatever you choose with this thing. It's a lot better than it used to be. It's a lot funner than it used to be. I'm going to put it into A tier for now. I would have put it into B tier originally, but I think now that I've just listed all that off, it goes into A tier. Also, the health values are what you need to watch out with the dinosaur. Yes, if you're going up against stuff like Cerato and stuff like that, you can effectively deal with them. You've got the mobility, you've got the turning radius, but if you're going up against anything bigger that's able to get some bites off on you, it is going to be a little bit of a problem, and you will feel that as well. That being said, Pachycephalosaurus into A tier, I think that's a pretty good spot. Speaking of a dinosaur that is in a pretty good spot, straight into S tier once again, Stegosaurus. Now we're getting a nice healthy amount of S tiers. We've got 3 carnivores, 3 herbivores at the moment. It's incredible, right? You've got fresh blood, which amplifies your bleed or damage values when near a bleeding target. Then you've got your high, decently damaged tail attacks. Don't really have much to choose from, but because you don't have much to choose from, you're always pretty much going to have the same gameplay style. Now, the problem is here with Stegosaurus is its stamina and the fact that it doesn't have pretty much any attacks frontally, so it's always going to be worse for wear if you were attacking it from head on, because it can't defend itself. So in the case of Stegosaurus, you kind of have to like move and turn and then do the tail attack to kind of lure them in. It's a fun dinosaur to play, the happy slappy bleeding tail. It definitely deserves its slot in S tier Stegosaurus. Styracosaurus is next. Like I said, this is the better version of albertaceratops. Yes, albertaceratops has the raw damage outputs over this, but this combos with bleed, and the bleed makes it even better. You can kind of nullify your raw damage because you have so much better bleed and good bleed values at that. Sterako has the maneuverability over albertaceratops as well, although it is slightly getting nerfed in the future. I think on the PTB there are some nerfs for it. It's still, even with those nerfs factored in, it's still a good dinosaur, although now it's not going to be as mobile as the other tiers in its category. But the other issue there is I think its combat weight drops and its health goes up, and I think when that nerf comes in, it's probably going to drop down a little bit to B tier, and it won't be as effective as it was before. The Struthiomimus TLC, once again, Campto wishes it was Struthio. At the moment, this is now the best one-slot herbivore in the game. Goes straight into B tier for me. You've got On Alert, which is a really nice ability when used right. I remember the bug when you had On Alert on and you turned it off and it stayed, which made it insanely OP. But it's got Kick Barrage and the normal kick as well for you to choose from. Now, I would personally go for Kick Barrage if you want to go for like multiple hits. If you're able to consistently hit your attacks, Kick Barrage is what I'd prefer to use. But the kick attack is always consistent. Raw damage to go off as well, which is always pretty decent. You've got good vocal calls as well, which allow you to support your team. You've got stuff like that tail fan. It's not tail fan, but you get what I mean, the one where you make your teammates behind you go faster when you're doing it. I forgot the name. Is it like Slipstream or something like that? I'm not too sure, but really good abilities. And Struthio just, it's that support dinosaur. It's fun to play. It's also good at harassing creatures as well now, because it has Kick Barrage and Kick a lot better than they used to be. I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to put this into D tier. Hatzgopteryx. Originally it was going to be a C tier, but I'm just popping it down into D. Very clunky in the air. Does not have any aerial attacks. It's meant to be a land-based hunter. The issue with it being a land-based hunter is when it gets attacked by anything bigger than its own size, or even anything smaller than its own size, and it has to run away, it has to sprint a little bit to run away. And if something blocks you, you then have to start again. And then you're also very weak to incoming attacks by other creatures, which then makes you even more in a sore spot, right? And then you also are in the air, you get harassed by Phalassodromises because you can't defend yourself in the air. So then Hatzgopteryx is just in a sore situation. Anyway, speaking of something that is in a good spot, Phalassodromius goes straight into B tier. The all-rounder flyer, yes, it should not be on the ground, but even when it's on the ground against smaller creatures, it's still very annoying, and it can get off the ground very quickly, a lot quicker than that of Hatzgopteryx. In the air, you can do attacks with the bite attack, and you can utilize some abuse of hitboxes, namely Spinosauruses. If you're just biting the sail, Spino can't really deal with you, and it's always going to be that of a nuisance. Fal is the all-rounder flyer of the base game roster at the moment, and that's probably what you need to look at if the devs were to introduce other flyers, which they're not anymore, because the only other technical flyer is Microraptor, and that's more of a glider. That being said, you've then got the final two aquatic creatures. Both of these, I have to caveat this by saying the oceans are boring in Path of Titans at the moment. So aquatic gameplay is very boring, and because of that, they're just going to sit into D tier for now, right? They're good, don't get me wrong. Your Rhino, I'd say, is better than Kai. In the situation where they do meet other playables, they will be rather okay. They're not terrible. It's just, if you were to pick these to play as at the moment, you're not going to have a good time. You're not really going to enjoy yourself. You're going to play it, you're going to grow it, and then you're going to be like, well, that's it, because everybody's on the land. Everybody's in Impact Crater. Everyone's in Grand Plains. Unless you can get these to Grand Plains River, then you can probably cause some issues. But other than that, that's pretty much all you can do with those two creatures. The next one, I think, Miragaia, recently released this year. One of my favorite dinosaurs. Goes alongside that of Kentrosaurus into B tier. The paralysis is good, but it's very situational. Like, if a dinosaur knows they're getting paralyzed, they're just going to stop attacking you. The other one there is you've got Toxin, which is the incredible new ability that pretty much makes 25% of the enemy's health unusable, and when they hit 25% of their health, they instantly combust, or you can just turn that into raw damage, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It's always better to just make them all gooped up with the Toxin. I love Miragaia, but I do think it definitely can be better. I think it fits into B tier because it's a well-rounded playable. It isn't amazing, but it isn't terrible. You're going to have a great time playing it regardless. And we're going to end it off with another B tier. I'm going to defend this. Ramphorhynchus does no damage, but it's a very fun support, playable, and its aim is literally just to annoy people. That's Rhamphorhynchus's aim. Annoying people, a sky rat, and supporting your teammates by latching onto them. You've got Lucky Feather as well, which allows it to be a little bit better at what it does. And now I'm saying this out loud, I kind of then will feel like I'll see some people go, oh yeah, but you put Deinonychus, which is also supporting to C tier, and that does damage. Think about it this way. While yes, you can pounce things as Deinonychus, you can also pounce flyers with Rhamphorhynchus while they are flying and effectively immobilize them, because they then can't use their spacebar until you're off them, and in some cases you could just knock them out of the sky, which is absolutely hilarious. I know some people who do that, and it's just really funny every time I see it. Rhamphorhynchus should be in a B tier. I think it will have that soft spot for the Rhamphorhynchus players. I will defend that till I die. Rhamphorhynchus is a lot better than people lead on to be. I know people just want to deal damage and attack things as a dinosaur, but if you think about just being annoying and harassing people and being the vermin that everybody hates, Rhamphorhynchus is that thing. Now let's talk about some other creatures in the game. Microraptor, Tylosaurus, and Leodichthyes are not out yet, but where would they place if they were out? What's my prediction for them? Microraptor, it's going to have glide, it's going to have tree climbing. I remember seeing some comments a couple years ago that it might not even get any damage dealing attacks, and if it does, then it goes into maybe C or B tier. The only reason it'll be better than... The only reason it'll be in B tier is if it does attacks. If it doesn't do attack damage, it would probably go into C tier because it can only glide. I guess climbing trees saves it, but because it can't just fly away, it probably will be a little bit worse than Ramph. But for now, I'm going to put it into B tier and be optimistic when it comes to Microraptor. Tylosaurus goes straight into A tier. I think effectively that's going to be the apex of the seas. Yes, I'm putting it into A tier when you've got these two here. If I were to change it, I'd probably do something like that. I don't know, but these two for now will go into there. But essentially, Tylosaurus will be the king of the oceans, and Leodichthyes will probably go into B tier as well. It's going to be slow. It's going to probably have a lot more health and combat weight, deal a lot more damage than Tylosaurus, but Tylosaurus will have the mobility and all that with it, I think. If I were to make some changes, probably put barsboldia up into S tier as well. And I think other than that, I'm quite happy with my tier list here. So, I'm now ready for me to be crucified for my tier list. I'd love to know in the comments down below what your tier list is, what your mains are. Do you agree or do you disagree? And where would you place some of the dinosaurs? Like if you were to make some corrections, where would you place stuff? But other than that, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. In fact, let me know your tier list or your top 10 favorite playables in the game in terms of which you find the most fun. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.